Wesley's historic questions were about what to teach, how to teach, and what to do. For this interval of features for the Connectional Table's Emerging Forum, we will seek to update these questions for our current moment. We will invite energetic conversation that will illumine our identity, which is tied to what and how we teach, our preferred actions, what we do, and our abiding hopes as we envision the future United Methodist Church. Our intent is to generate passion and energy for conversations that help us walk forward together. Today, I am joined by Bishop Cynthia Fierro Harvey, President of the Council of Bishops and the Bishop of the Louisiana Episcopal Area. Good morning, Bishop Fierro Harvey.
Good morning. Good morning. It's good to be with you.
We're going to begin kind of just with a conversation about who we are as a denomination. We sometimes struggle to define our identity. So what would you describe as the preoccupations and passions that people would see as the mark of a contemporary United Methodist?
What I would like people to see about our identity, or about our experience, what people would experience about who we are, because I don't think we're fully there. Obviously, the things for me that mark being a United Methodist, and I haven't been a United Methodist all my life, so I can think about the things that brought me to the United Methodist Church. An open table, grace upon grace. And the openness, I grew up Roman Catholic. And so the open table, the openness, the allowing me to be me, to be a female leader in the church, obviously was an important thing that brought me to the church. So I see those as foundational about who we are. Now we say that, and I'm not sure we always mean it. But I do hope that even in the tension and even in those struggles, when we say it, that we can people can experience it more so than not, and that we can live out of that identity of openness, of an open table. And I'm not just talking about a communion table, while that's important, but an openness to be at.
Let's say more about that. You talk about, of course, the image that came immediately to mind for me was the communion table. But what does it mean in a denomination that, at least in the U.S., already struggles with diversity, perhaps in some way, that you might not have a diversity of people coming to the communion table in a local church? What does that mean? What does that look like?
I think about, and I wrote about this, about my childhood Thanksgiving table, that to me was like a communion table. It was sacramental in many ways. And it wasn't just about the food. It was about hospitality, the openness to gather at table. And yes, when we talk about open table, the first image we have is the communion table, and rightfully so. But at our table, we had all kinds of folk gathered, people who sometimes I didn't know who they were. Recently, my brother shared a photograph, and it's like, who is that in that family photo? And we know it's not a family member, but we knew that when we took the family photo, everybody would be in the photo if you were there. So there were strangers at this table. There were people who didn't like each other at this table. There were people who loved each other at this table. And so to me, that broadens my perspective of what an open table looks like. And when we talk about the global nature of this church that we're in and the diversity that we have, for me to even be at some of these tables, I often look around and thinking, gosh, how did I get here? The privilege of being at these tables. And I also understand that not everybody has that same privilege, right? And so I don't take that lightly. I take that with a lot of responsibility, being female, being Hispanic, Latina, all of those things. I don't take those things lightly, that I am at the table with some responsibility. So I just think that for us, and let me just tell you one quick little anecdotal story. In a church that I served, I'll never forget this, and I'm not going to name names, but I do know the names and I can see the faces. Serving communion and serving one of the most conservative women I knew in the church, brushing up shoulder to shoulder with a dear friend who was gay and suffered from HIV/AIDS. And they were shoulder to shoulder at the communion table. And that image, I can never unsee that. And I'm so glad. I will never be able to unsee what that looked like at the table. And when you're serving communion, often at the communion rail, you're going down, and I got to these two, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is an image of what I would like our church to be like. And that was years and years and years ago. So when I think about identity, when we talk about identity, that image just keeps coming to my mind of being at the table, serving these two people shoulder to shoulder at the same table, same communion bread, same cup. And here they are, shoulder to shoulder. To me, that's an identity perhaps that I long for in the United Methodist Church.
So what speaks to you in terms of the historic identity of United Methodists and United Methodism that gets us to that place? What is it in our core beliefs or our core theology that would get us to that place of this gay person suffering with HIV and this very conservative Christian at the same altar, at the same table, drinking from the same communion cup pre-COVID?
One of the places I go back to is the theological task in the United Methodist Book of Discipline. We are a vital web of interactive relationships. That phrase, a vital web of interactive relationships. There is that, we call it connection sometimes. But to me, that statement of a vital web, that means that I can't live in this web without you. It is vital that we're in this web together. And sometimes it looks more like a hairball than it does a web, right? But it is a vital web of interactive relationships. I cannot live without you. And I think for me, that's the image at the table. I think that's sort of baked into my DNA, frankly. But I just, that phrase of a vital web of interactive relationships. And every once in a while, I just go back and read that theological task. And I just go back and really read through that and reflect on some of those words. We are a vital web of interactive relationships. And that's what helps us be at that table together.
We're all different, but we're not complete until we're together.
Yeah.
What a beautiful image.